Welcome to the BEASTwriter family where social media engagement is encouraged. I am your host, Ryan Sakamoto, and today we are going to be talking and breaking down the Pro Bowl voting as it pertains to the 2022 or 2021 season. Obviously, they call it the following year Pro Bowl because it's in 2022. But let's go ahead and talk about that. The Pro Bowl voting has been underway. It's been going on for a few weeks now. And it's crazy how some players are sitting at the top of the list in the Pro Bowl voting. It's always a household name type of a deal. It's like, oh, if this guy's a household name, he should get it automatically. No, you shouldn't, bro. Like, it's stupid how people, and I was in this category too at one point. In middle school and high school, I'd be a box score reader, and I always say, don't be a box score reader. Why? Because you're doing yourself no justice to the player. Whether you're criticizing a player or praising a player, you have to grade every single snap played. You can't just look at the box score and be like, oh, ESPN highlights. Oh, look at Trey Hendrickson getting 3.5 sacks or whatever. There's more to the story than just racking up sack numbers. There's more to the story than just following the narrative that someone is pushing. Actually, do your own research. And if you do that, I think you'll find more appreciation for the player in regards to whether or not a player is doing well as opposed to doing bad. And then you can cross-check that around the league and say, well, how does this player compare to other players around the league, not just the players on that respective team that I'm rooting for? So again, there's a lot of different things that we can talk about. One of the things I want to talk about is the Pro Bowl voting, and we're just going to get that underway, all right? So we're going to talk about some of the players. I don't know the actual numbers as the Pro Bowl voting has taken place. I will talk about, let's start with the AFC, right? Josh Allen leads the Pro Bowl voting in the AFC. Obviously, he's legit. He's having a good season, so I'm not going to argue that. Jonathan Taylor obviously should be a front runner for MVP, so yes, he should be in the running for the top running back in the Pro Bowl voting coming out of the AFC. Patrick Ricard, if you guys don't know who he is a fullback for the Baltimore Ravens. Yes, the fullback position is obsolete and basically I would call it like the dinosaur age of having a fullback, because who uses a fullback these days? But if you're a power-based run scheme like Greg Roman, you're going to need that fullback. He had Bruce Miller, now he has Pat Ricard in Baltimore. So Pat Ricard, you can't argue there. Obviously, Kyle Juszczyk in the NFC. If it's anything other than Kyle Juszczyk, I think everyone would be heads would roll. So you got that. But let's talk about some players who are on the list who I'm like, I'm not so sure. Not my BWF grades, all right? So we talk a lot about defense. Let's talk about offense, all right? So I do like the offensive line that they have here. They have Orlando Brown Jr. He leads the league in Pro Bowl voting for tackle. Joel Betonio, one of the most underrated interior guards in my grading system. In fact, he was a first-team All-Pro by me as I have a selection. As I have Pro Bowl, not Pro Bowl. Gosh damn. Pro Football Writers Association year-end voting rights, and he was one of my guys that I selected as an interior guard along with Quentin Nelson. Now, I still think Quentin Nelson is the standard. Last year, he was dealing with some penalties issues, but, Quentin Nelson, if you can... Is there any interior guard that flashes out more on film when you watch all 22 than Quentin Nelson? No. Center, they have David Andrews, very underrated. No surprise there. You see them getting a lot of stuff done in New England, and it comes down to good coaching, whether it's Michael, I think his name is Michael Onwenu. I can't pronounce his last name, but Onwenu, he's a good one. And obviously they had Joe Thuney last year before he went off to the Kansas City Chiefs. So it's just crazy how the New England Patriots are still turning out offensive linemen and defensive backs, and they seem to build their talent through the draft, and that's why they're so good, because they continue to build through the draft and collect talent, but more importantly, coach up that talent. So it's not so much about collecting talent as it is building a football team and making sure that player fits inside your scheme. And I think Bill Belichick does a really good job at doing that. So with that being said, let's go ahead and talk about, again, continuing on, Jamar Chase. My next Reggie Wayne comparison, pre-draft analysis checks out. I know all you guys were laughing at me. Not all you guys, but some people who don't follow me were laughing, say, oh yeah, he's not the next Reggie Wayne. He didn't even play last year, whatever. I was like, dude, did you even watch 2019, bro? Did you see he was the best college football wide receiver on that freaking team with Justin Jefferson there? Wait, what? Yeah, bro. Anyways, here we are, Jamar Chase, beast. All right. And then we look at it here. Jeffrey Simmons. This is a one that's kind of, and I'll tell you why it's kind of, Now, if you follow me on Twitter and YouTube and so forth, whatever social media outlet, you guys will know that Jeffrey Simmons was a riser in my grading system last year. I even labeled him going into the season as a top 5 interior defensive lineman. That holds true. If you look at my latest tweet, he does come in at number 5 based on my BWF grades. However, the number 1 player in the AFC for all interior defensive linemen coming out of the AFC should be Cam Hayward, who you're going to see tonight. You're going to see him tonight against the Minnesota Vikings. And Cam Hayward, to me, he is the standard in the AFC, just like Aaron Donald is the standard in the NFC. I mean, if you look at a 2-gap player who can not only push the pocket as an interior rusher, but then also knows his run fit integrity, whether it's facing a mobile quarterback Lamar Jackson like he faces twice a year. He does a really good job of leveraging his technique, and he is one of the most criminally underrated. In my opinion, he's a Hall of Famer, first and foremost. Cam Hayward is a Hall of Famer. If you're watching this, Cam Hayward, I'm calling you a Hall of Famer. Thank you for the love. First and foremost, for retweeting me and liking all my stuff. I appreciate it. And yeah, so with that being said, I just want to say, if you're watching, thank you. But Cam Hayward, I mean, how can you tell me Cam Hayward is not the best interior defensive lineman in the AFC? Don't be a box score reader. Everyone talks about TJ Watt, right? And for deservedly so. I mean, the guy's racking up sacks on sacks on sacks on sacks on sacks on sacks on sacks. And he was hurt, right? He had a groin injury early on. He was in a contract dispute, so it was a camp holdout before signing that deal that he said, you know what? I don't care who you are. Talking to your agent, I don't care who you are, man. Like, I want to get this deal done. This is a good deal. I'm just gonna take it. And so he kind of rode the agent in signing that contract. He's like, nah, man, I'm gonna sign. I want to stay in Pittsburgh. It's a good deal. But Cam Hayward, how is he not number 1? I even tweeted it out. Pro Bowl vote, Pro Bowl vote, Pro Bowl vote, blah. Cam Hayward, all day, every day. All right. So again, there's no reason for him not to be number 1 in the AFC. It's plain and simple. It's plain and simple as that, because if you think of someone who's better than him, I don't see one. I don't see one better than him. So that's what I have to say about that. And then you look at let's see who else we got here. Denzel Perryman, inside linebacker for the Las Vegas Raiders. I like Denzel Perryman. Always liked Denzel Perryman, kind of coming out of the University of Miami. Thought he was a 2-down run stuffer. Was a liability in pass coverage, but Denzel Perryman, I like him. He's always up there as a tackling machine, and there's no reason why he shouldn't be. J.C. Jackson, Tyrann Mathieu, both rank 2 and 1 respectively in their positional units as far as their rankings in my BWF grade, so I like them. But then again, let's go ahead and talk about the NFC. Right? Let's roll over to the NFC. AFC is pretty much set. I like it. Tom Brady, obviously, he's going to lead it. Ezekiel Elliott at running back. Yeah, I can see that. I can see Zeke Elliott. Why is that Elijah Mitchell? Fullback Kyle Juszczyk is already up there. Cooper Kupp, how can you argue? Kyle Pitts. No surprise here. We had my man Randy Miller on the show, and we were talking about Kyle Pitts and what he brought to the table. And so that's why I thought Kyle Pitts would be what he is today. He's a great player. I compared him to Megatron in terms of his catching radius. And Randy Miller agreed. He said, you know what? He has a big catching radius like that. Big guy, big target, has the speed, has that deep speed. He can gain separation at the top of his route. Used more like a wide receiver than he is as a tight end. He's not an inline blocker. You don't pay a guy like that or draft a guy like that to be an inline blocker when you have a skill set like Kyle Pitts is. That's what makes George Kittle so valuable, because he can do both. I mean, George Kittle is the best all-around tight end in the NFL. If you don't think George Kittle is not the best tight end overall in the NFL, you're doing yourself a disservice. Yeah, Travis Kelce may get the numbers as a receiver, but name a better tight end than George Kittle who can inline block, make others around him better, because by default, he's opening up the running game. I mean, George Kittle is... I don't know. I don't like guys who are one-trick ponies. I don't like guys who are strictly pass rushers, but then sell out on run fit integrity. Flip side with the offensive side of the football. If you don't block, you don't play. I don't give a damn who you are. If you don't block, you don't play. And I think that's going to hold true with all. That's why all these good coaches, they always preach blocking. Spring your teammate when you can. Don't take plays off. Play to the whistle. Right? And we see players, wide receivers, they get downfield. If they're not getting the ball, they're going to start pouting. No, man. There's still a play being ran. Joe Mixon is running with the ball. We have a question by Genuine Waruna Pereira from SI, part of Grant's team. He says he wants to know, because I asked a question on Twitter. If you guys have any questions on Twitter, I can go ahead and pull up my Twitter feed and then answer your questions on this live stream. But he says, I have a question for the Bengals. A team moving in the right direction, what should they fix to become a contender? And I was thinking about this, and well, I ran my BWF grades because I grade every single player, right? Not every single player, but the important players on their respective teams. I definitely grade every single team. So with that being said, Jesse Bates III needs to clean up some shit. Jesse Bates gave up 2 touchdowns last week. All right, he gave up numerous big plays. All right, let me just pull up the numbers. I graded every single snap when it comes to Jesse. You guys want to know who's Jesse Bates? He should be a household name. He should have been the first team All-Pro last year, or should have been in line for at least a Pro Bowl vote and first team All-Pro last year, or at least second team All-Pro. But Tyrann Mathieu, obviously, well, he plays strong safety. But if you're looking at the free safety, Minkah Fitzpatrick, how can you argue Minkah Fitzpatrick? He was playing at first team All-Pro level, and deservedly so. So, Jesse Bates III, another AFC North free safety who's in line for a contract. This is a player where Niner fans, you should be kind of like, should we go out and sign this guy? Why? I don't think you guys should, because you guys already have Jimmy Ward. But if, let's say they say, hey, we want Jesse Bates III. You know, he's been playing relatively well the last few years, and he's in the contract year. Well, Jesse Bates III, this is a year where if the Bengals make the playoffs, you're going to have to shine, bro, in the playoffs. In the playoffs is where you're going to make your money. All right? And if you can prove in the 1 to 2 games or whatever your deep playoff run, if you go on a deep playoff run, you're going to be the focal point of inking that next deal, because at the end of the day, it's like, is the stage too bright for this kid? And we don't know, because he never sniffed a playoff berth yet. All right? So Jesse Bates III, I'm just going to pull up his numbers and what he did, because at the end of the day, it's almost like this. It's like, how can you criticize or praise the player if you don't grade every single snap played? Again, you're doing the player no justice, giving him little to no respect if you don't do that. You can't just pull up plays or certain plays and be like, oh yeah, this guy sucks because of no, dude, grade every single snap played. Every single snap played, and then cross-check that with around other players who are on the same type of level around the league or scheme, depending if you're putting a 3-4 base or 4-3 front, depending what kind of cover shell they typically use. Like, for instance, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they like to use a lot of cover 3. Same thing with the Cincinnati Bengals. They like to use a lot of cover 3. Now, they do mix cover 1. They do go cover 4 a lot, but based on down and distance, all right? So, same thing with the Denver Broncos. Vic Fangio is known to use a cover 3. He will go cover 1 in certain instances, so you guys got to figure out exactly what's what. But let's pull up the grades when it comes to Jesse Bates III. And I like Jesse Bates III a lot. I like him a lot, all right? But he did have a horrible game against the Los Angeles Chargers. It was really surprising how bad of a game he had. In fact, I think he graded at a -3 out of a 10. -3 out of a 10. He never was graded that low in a game in my BWF grading system. I know that for a fact because he never had a negative grade to begin with. But then he graded out -3 out of a 10. All right, -3 out of 10 in pass coverage. And he did do well in run support, so he did get a 9. But he was bad, all right? This is the Week 13, all right, against the LA Chargers. You want to talk about the Bengals, right? The matchup with the 49ers and the Bengals. Attack Jesse Bates because he had a bad game. Let's see if he cleaned that up, all right? Cover 3, here we go. Off the top of my head, here we go. Touchdown, my notes here. Cover 3, Week 13. Jesse Bates was in cover 3, single high safety, and he got beat deep. Another one was same game, man-to-man coverage. So this is the first game in my BWF grading system since week 2 that he has given up a touchdown. So in his last X amount of games since week 2, he has not given up a touchdown until week 13 where he gave up 2. Multiple touchdowns, all right? Now, what were those plays? Well, one was against Jared Cook, all right, as a curl hook defender. So again, I talked about this yesterday in my live stream where, again, you're seeing a lot of different pre-snap, post-snap reads by the cover shells of defensive coordinators because, again, teams are picking up on earlier tendencies. So you can't just grade 3 to 4 games throughout the year and then go into that week and be like, okay, this is the game plan we're going with. Now defensive coordinators are picking it up because defenses are catching up to the offense and saying, hey, look, we have to disguise our coverages a little bit. We saw it with the Pittsburgh Steelers and what they did against the Baltimore Ravens. They like to use four-man back, right? And then they roll up a safety or roll back a safety. Now, if you cover the Pittsburgh Steelers and watch the coaches film, you would know that they didn't really do that. Now, they would disguise interchangeable, you would have Terrell Edmonds coming up and then sinking back and Minkah Fitzpatrick being the curl hook defender. Now we're seeing it with the Cincinnati Bengals. However, you never saw four people or four defenders lined up in a straight line across. Usually you'll have two boundary safeties and a strong safety and a free safety, and then that'll be, it's a cover four shell. But they're back like this. Like, everybody's leveled four across, right? They're leveled four across, and then they once the ball is snapped, that's when shit happens. So it's kind of like, guys, dang, man, you better be on your A game if you're the quarterback, because that can create havoc. But Jesse Bates was the curl hook defender on that Jared Cook big play where he gave up a 20-plus pass play. He also was in man-to-man coverage against Jalen Guyton. I thought he would win this 50-50 ball at the catch point. He does a really good job at that. Usually he's a ball hawk when it comes to that. Making a good read on the play by getting his hand on the numbers of the receiver, looking back for the ball so he doesn't get called for a PI penalty. Unfortunately, he didn't do any of those things. And he tried to play jump ball with Jalen Guyton, who just freaking got the better vertical. Climbed the ladder, got the ball, touchdown, and that was in man-to-man coverage. So, interesting to point that out. I just want to point that out because, again, the 49ers, if you're looking at this, and if Jared Cook can do it, you don't think George Kittle can do it? Absolutely. George Kittle is going to be doing it. George Kittle is going to make shit happen. And it's going to be one of those things where it's going to be really interesting to see what is going on when it comes to the 49ers as they face the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, I already said that the Cincinnati Bengals are going to win, but that's one thing that they need to clean up. And yes, they have Von Bell, number 24. Yes, they have Mike Hilton. I think he's number 21 now, was number 28 with the Pittsburgh Steelers. One of the best nickel slot cornerbacks in the entire NFL. Had a pick six against the Pittsburgh Steelers and got manhandled a little bit. Got manhandled a little bit by Mike Williams. Mike Williams boxed him out. I don't recall the coverage, but I think it was a cover one, if I'm not mistaken. If it wasn't a cover one, it was probably a cover three. I don't know. But in coverage, it was on the sideline, on the right sideline, and Mike Williams just boxed out Mike Hilton and won that ball. And Mike Hilton's not the biggest, strongest slot cornerbacks. Slot cornerbacks are usually more shiftier and smaller, kind of like in the 5'9", 5'10 range anyways. And he just got out-muscled. So if you're Kyle Shanahan and you're going to want to take advantage of matchups, hey, you can run a lot of fuga with George Kittle. You can get those big-bodied wide receivers. Get Jawan Jennings. He's a taller, lankier wide receiver. Get him out in space on a Mike Hilton. See if he can make a play on the ball. But Brandon Ayuk is going to get his on those corner post routes. Von Bell is not fast enough to stay stride for stride, whether he's playing his respective zone. I think Brandon Ayuk can take the top off the defense. Now, depending on where Jesse Bates lines up, I mean, he's usually the last line of defense more times than not. I would say 80% of the time, off the top of my head, Jesse Bates is more lined up as the cover three, cover one deep safety, known as the eraser role. So it's going to be interesting how they attack it. I think if you're Jimmy Garoppolo, you're going to want to attack the numbers to the boundary because you don't want to test Jesse Bates down the middle. I mean, yes, I just said that you should attack Jesse Bates down the seams or down the middle of the field. But at the end of the day, it's almost like this. It's like everybody has a bad game, and then how they bounce back from it. So yeah, I would take maybe a shot early on to see if he kind of shored that up. If not, then you can attack it. But if he shored that up, then you have to go somewhere else. And I think that's where the Bengals' weakness lies. I think the 49ers can attack that weakness. And then again, from that, you look at what they have on the defensive line, right? They got Trey Hendrickson, right? Trey Hendrickson is a double-digit sack artist. He came to the Cincinnati Bengals because Carl Lawson, who was also a free agent, bolted for the take-flight New York Jets under Robert Saleh, who I believe he tore his ACL or something. That he had an injury. He's out for the year. Thoughts and prayers out to Carl Lawson. But yeah, it's almost like you bring in a guy, Trey Hendrickson from the New Orleans Saints. He's getting it done. Larry Ogunjobi, one of the most underrated defensive linemen in the entire NFL, coming from the Cleveland Browns, sixth within the AFC North. So you see a game of musical chairs within the AFC North. AFC North knows their own players and know their frenemies. I should say, right? They're frenemies. Like Larry Ogunjobi, good. He was good on the Cleveland Browns. And then he chose to go to the Cincinnati Bengals. Just like Mike Hilton chose to go to the Cincinnati Bengals from the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, defense, they have it. Joe Mixon, it's going to be hard to stop Joe Mixon. He got hurt in the game. Michael Fabiano, shout out to you. Michael Fabiano, Fantasy Football, if you're watching, retweeted my tweet when he got hurt. But he did go back in the game, and I believe he did score a touchdown or did play really well shortly thereafter. I think he only took a few plays off. T. Higgins has an ankle injury. That's going to be huge because you need a trio of wide receivers when you face a team like the San Francisco 49ers, even though they're hit hard by the injury bug at boundary cornerback. You have T. Higgins there, you have Jamar Chase, and of course you have Tyler Boyd, who's one of the best slot wide receivers in the entire NFL, coming out of Pitt. So when you have all that, a trio of wide receivers, and you don't have T. Higgins there, that big-bodied wide receiver, what's that going to do to the offense? Well, Joe Burrow, you still have Joe Burrow there. You still have Joe Mixon. You still have to establish the run. But in that wide nine scheme, I mean, I'd be mindful of using that because, again, you have guys like Jonah Williams, first-round pick at a Roll Tide Roll, Alabama. He was kind of like, I think he got hurt early on, and then now he's having a good year. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting game. I don't think the 49ers are going to come out on top, unfortunately. I think there's just too many injuries. However, they do get Fred Warner back. I'm told that Fred Warner is looking healthy. He'll probably play in this game. So getting Fred Warner back is going to be a huge lift to that second-level backer situation. But at the end of the day, you're going to need more than that, right? And prove me wrong, Niners. I hope I'm wrong. I mean, I want to see the Niners win. But at the end of the day, is it going to happen? I don't know. I have no idea. But getting back to Genuine Pro, he says, Bengals, a team moving in the right direction. What should they fix to become a contender here on Twitter? That's what I say. I would say, attack Jesse Bates, see what they do. And hopefully Jesse Bates can clean up his mistakes. Because I don't see that happening or reoccurring. I think he's in a contract year, and I think teams are picking up on that and saying, hey, look, they're going to look at that game and be like, what happened? Is that an anomaly? Is that going to be the norm moving forward? These are things that you have to look at, especially when you're in a contract year and you really haven't made any noise, really. I mean, because you're not a household name, Jesse Bates III. You're not, at least not yet, And because mainly it's because you were playing on the Cincinnati Bengals for over the years, or Cincinnati Bungles, as people would say. But they have people in place, right? They brought in Riley Reef, sticking with the offensive line. They have Jonah Williams. Here you go. Let me just pull up the roster right here. Quentin Spain, Trey Hopkins, they're all right. Fred Johnson, all right, who was with the Pittsburgh Steelers. No surprise there. I just talked about the AFC North, sticking with the AFC North and being frenemies. We see it with the NFC West with Kerry Hyder Jr. going to the Seattle Seahawks. So, interesting. Sam Hubbard, another underrated player, having a really good year. I think he has 7.5 sacks this year, if I'm doing this off the top of my head. DJ Reader, one of the most underrated interior defensive linemen for the Houston Texans, coming over. He's a really good one too. They got him in as a free agent. So you see what they're doing. The second level backers, I think he can attack them a little bit, but again, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting how this plays out because again, you can run a lot of fuga against those second level backers. All right. But that's what I see going on there, and I don't see that changing very much. I just don't see things happening as quickly as one would expect when it comes to the four. Now they can't start off slow against the Cincinnati Bengals, and the Cincinnati Bengals also can't start off slow. If you watch the LA Chargers game, the freaking Cincinnati Bengals yielded 24 points. It was 0-24, and then the Bengals had to strike back on numerous occasions, coming back, scoring 22 unanswered points before missing on that failed 2-point conversion to possibly tie the game, and that really hurt them. So there's a lot of things that both sides need to come out straight out of the gates. You cannot go down 10-0, 13-0 either way. I think you're going to have to start hot, and I think this is a game where the 49ers, I mean, everyone doesn't expect the Niners to win, and I think that bodes well for them. I think that really does bode well for the San Francisco 49ers because now their pressure is off. No one expects them to win. Oh, they lost to the Seahawks, a 4-8 team. The season's over. No, it's not. Even if the 49ers lose this game in Cincinnati Bengals, I still said they're going to make the playoffs. Why? Well, if you do the research around the NFL, grade every single game, like I do, you would know that even though the Niners aren't very good, the other teams in the playoff hunt aren't very much better than them. So by default, the Niners should get in. I'm just saying. Now, the Minnesota Vikings, let's talk about that game. Minnesota Vikings against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Minnesota Vikings are home. Obviously, we all know what they have. Adam Thielen, Justin Jefferson, of course, Kirk Cousins. But Dalvin Cook's out, though. He has a torn pec, right? Injured against the San Francisco 49ers. I think, who hit him? I think it was Kevin Givens that hit him for a TFL or whatever. But with that being said, I don't see the Minnesota Vikings, even if they beat the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I kind of think they're going to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. And Steelers fans, if you're watching, I'm sorry. I just keep it real. I think the Minnesota Vikings are going to win this game. I just think the Pittsburgh Steelers, their season is so much of a roller coaster ride. You don't have Juju Smith-Schuster out there. You have Chase Claypool, who wants music at practice. And then Cam Hayward chimes in and says, no, it's all about winning. Let's stick to that. Stick to what we do best. And let's get it done on the field, which I agree. It's all about X's and O's. Let's get it done. Mike Tomlin comes out and says, yeah, did you hear the report? Chase Claypool thought the practices would be more lively if he had live music. Or not live music, but music. And Tomlin's like, yeah, I'll let him play wide receiver and I'll do the coaching. So there's a lot. I don't know. I like that win against the Baltimore Ravens. I thought it was a good, strong, hard-fought battle. It's what you would expect from the black and blue division up in the AFC North. But at the end of the day, has it taken a toll on them? I mean, that was one down to the wire, and usually when games go down to the wire like that, the following week they just can't hold up. I mean, at some point they just kind of break down and take an L. So I hope they don't. I want the Steelers to win. I mean, I like the Steelers personally, so I want the Steelers to win. I just don't see it happening. I think the Minnesota Vikings are just going to be too much on offense, and I think they're going to find a way to get it done at the end. I think it's going to be possibly a low-scoring game. I think I would take the under. All right, I would take the under, and I mean, I don't know. I can see a 24-23 ball game or 2017 ball game, something like that. 2016, 24-23, something like that. I don't think one team's necessarily going to top 30 points. Now watch me be wrong and watch it happen. Watch it be like a 45-31 ball game or something like that. To shoot out Big Ben. Oh my gosh. No, I don't know. The Steelers, you look at what the Steelers have, right? They have a good. Big Ben's not coming back anytime soon, so that's something to keep and be mindful of. But then again, you have guys like Deontay Johnson. You have guys like not Juju Smith-Schuster because he's out, but you have guys like Chase Claypool. You have Pat Freiermuth, who they drafted in the second round, right? I thought they would be drafted by the Steelers in the second round. He was, just like I predicted Najee Harris to be drafted by the Steelers in the first. He was. They got a young offensive line, not very strong, but the Vikings don't have Danielle Hunter. He was playing at a first-team All-Pro level on my BWF grading system before getting hurt week 9, I believe. And I don't know if it was a torn pec or a bicep injury, I forget. But he's out. He's out for the year. And I believe it was week 9 where he got injured. If I'm not mistaken, let me just pull back my notes here. As I graded every single snap when it came to Danielle Hunter. It was his pec. All right, he had a torn pec, and it was week 9. Gosh dang, how do I remember this shit? Wow. Anyways, yeah. So there's that. And I have no idea how I remembered that, but yeah, that's kind of crazy. But yeah, no, the Minnesota Vikings, Pittsburgh Steelers, and then on the defense side, obviously they talked about Cam Hayward, but they're missing 2/3 of their starting defensive line. They play in a 34 base, not a traditional 4-3 front. When you do that, you don't have a nose tackle. All right, you don't have a nose tackle because he's out. Alu is out for the year. All right, he got hurt. I think it was by friendly fire. I forgot who hit him. Someone hit him in the lower leg. He had an ankle fracture or something like that. I think he's out for the year. It was early on. I think like maybe the Buffalo Bills, if I'm remembering correctly. I don't know. You guys can go back and check right? But I think it was. I don't know. It was against one of those teams. Anyways, he has a fractured ankle. He's out. Stephon Tuitt, who was graded as a first-team All-Pro level in my grading system last year, has yet to play. Dealing with a lot of off-field stuff, knee issues. You guys get the picture. I voted him as I have a selection for the PFWA. I voted him as first-team All-Pro. I thought he should have got in last year, but hasn't played this year. So anytime you play a game of musical chairs up front in that 34-base defense, where the heart and soul of that defense is guys who can two-gap. Because if you can't two-gap in the 34 base, you shouldn't be playing that style of defense. All right? And what does two gapping mean? Two gapping means it's a read and react style of play. You're not just generating upfield, pinning your ears back, going after the quarterback. It's not that Y9-4-3 defense that you see with the San Francisco 49ers. In the 34 base, you're going to two gap. So you have to leverage and clip how you see fit. So if you're leveraging or playing your splits or your techniques and you're playing the four tech, where you're going to have to stack inside or outside depending on where the play is being ran, and then also free up those second level backers. So you're going to have to take on multiple double teams more times than not. And Cam Hayward does that, and surprisingly, Cam Hayward's still racking up sack numbers and still getting a lot of quarterback pressure and still being sound in his run fit integrity, which is why it's surprising that Cameron Hayward is not number one in the AFC of all interior defensive linemen. Jeffrey Simmons plays in the 4-3 base, and I'm not saying because he plays in the 4-3 base he shouldn't be number one, but what I'm saying is look at and grade every single snap played. Cam Hayward is the standard, guys. He is just the standard, just like Aaron Donald is the standard in the NFC. I'm telling you guys straight up, man. Like, Cam Hayward is a Hall of Famer. Cam Hayward is a Hall of Famer. And again, you have those guys, and then you have Devin Bush, who they drafted, traded up, and I thought they would draft Devin Bush or Devin White back in 2019. I said, I was like, they're going to draft one of those guys. They're going to trade up and, go up and get one of those guys. They don't do it very often. GM Kevin Colbert doesn't do it very often, but he does do it. And I thought he would make a play, and he did, for Devin Bush out of Michigan. So he's a good one. They traded for Joe Shobert, coming from the Jacksonville Jaguars, if I'm not mistaken. And he has been a liability in pass coverage. I graded every single snap of Joe Shobert in last week's game against the Baltimore Ravens. He didn't fare so well in pass coverage against Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews and some of these guys. So Joe Shobert, if you're watching this, and I hope you redeem yourself, because I think that's the reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers got you. It was a game of musical chairs since 2019 when I covered you guys for Sports Illustrated, and I said Mark Barron was a liability in pass coverage, and here is a guy that was at roll tide roll, a strong safety, and they converted him to a linebacker thinking he can get it done, moving him as an inside linebacker, right? And that was all for naught, right? So you had Devin Bush and Mark Barron. Mark Barron couldn't get it done. And then you have Robert Spillane going in there, and he struggles in the playoffs. And it's like, oh my gosh, what's going on, number 41? Yeah. So here we are. And you look at the outside linebackers in tonight's matchup as we roll into tonight's game, because that's going to be relevant. Who's talking about what person that covers the Niners and also covers the Steelers and covers all? No one's going to be talking about the Steelers and Vikings. What's really important, because if you don't know how the game's going to play out, or if you don't know what to expect going into game, playing it blind, how does that affect the 49ers? It does. It does, because the playoff picture of Minnesota is going to be right in the thick of it. I said it in my predictions week 12 that the Minnesota Vikings are going to be right in the thick of it. Like, they'll be a team that potentially would make it. Actually, I do have them making it, if I'm not mistaken. So that's why I think they're going to pull out this victory tonight. That's why I think Justin Jefferson, who was my draft crush, you guys know about this. I said the Niners should have traded down and got Justin Jefferson if they don't stick at 14 and select, or sorry, I should say 13 at the time, and get Tristan Wirfs. They didn't. They traded down one pick later, got Javon Kinlaw. Anyways, real-time analysis, cross-check in hindsight, beast receipts, check out. But yeah, Minnesota Vikings, bro, like, I don't know. It's Pittsburgh Steelers. Vikings should win. Pittsburgh Steelers, I mean, I think that's just one of those games where I think they're just gassed, man. Watching that game, it took everything out of them. That was like a playoff game. Obviously, we all expected it to be a type of a playoff game. I think the Baltimore Ravens and the Pittsburgh Steelers is the most hated rivalry in all of football. No offense. I would say the Seahawks and Niners too. Those guys, AFC, it's Steelers and Ravens. NFC, it's definitely the Niners and Seahawks. I think the hatred for one another is alive and kicking. I kind of like that. I don't like using hate. Hate's a strong word, but they hate each other. They hate each other. They absolutely hate each other. Pete Carroll hated Jim Harbaugh. Jim Harbaugh hated Pete Carroll. We all were witnessing the handshakes at midfield. It was just a riot, but it was a love-hatred. I wouldn't say hated, like, oh, I'm, like that. But it was a love-hate relationship. They respected each other. And that's what football is all about. I love that. I love controlled violence, just like Robert Saleh loves controlled violence. We talk about this all the time. I talked about it with him. I was like, dude, I'm kind of a violent guy. I kind of like when people get their heads taken off, whether it be me or the other person. At least one of us got hit and got blown up. But controlled violence. I like controlled violence. I don't think anyone who doesn't like controlled violence doesn't like controlled violence. Like, everyone loves violence. But yeah, that's gonna be a good game. Obviously, Joe Hayden's been out. When you talk about the Steelers secondary, they got Akilla Witherspoon. He's been coming back into the lineup. They kind of used him sparingly once they traded him for him from the Seattle Seahawks. And what you saw was James Pierre being benched. I don't know how PFF graded James Pierre higher than Pat Surtain. And I tweeted this out, and I was like, how's that happening? Because in my grading system, when it comes to James Pierre, grading every single snap played, he's the worst DB on the team. And then the following week, that week, the Steelers benched him, starting quarterback James Pierre, inserted Akilla Witherspoon along with Cam Sutton and a few others. And whether it be Arthur Maulet or whoever, and they got it done. They got it done by committee. So that's why I run my own BWF grading system. I don't know. I just, some things that PFF does, and it's kind of like, wow, like, where does that come from? Anyways, that's how I see it playing out. Obviously, I talked about Terrell Edmonds. He's also in the contract year. I think they declined his 5th-year option. And so now he's going to be an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year. I don't think the Pittsburgh Steelers is going to re-sign Terrell Edmonds. I think they're going to go in another direction because they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. And that's just something that we have to look forward to. Now, up in the upcoming draft, how does that affect the 49ers, who also need safety help? Because we don't know what's going to happen with Chikwati Tart. Can he stay healthy? What's going to happen with him? Is Talanoa Hufanga the answer at strong safety? I think they're going to roll that way. What I'm hearing is they absolutely love Talanoa Hufanga. And not only does he bring a special teams presence with him, but he can also be a plug-and-play strong safety. And I think you're seeing that. You're seeing that when Tart was healthy. You see him kind of roll in, just D'Amico runs kind of roll him in and see how he does in coverage, in simple coverage responsibilities. Nothing too crazy, right? Nothing exotic. No exotic cover shells. It's a cover 4, cover 3. Does he know his assignment? Does he know his fundamentals, how to play his techniques pre-snap to post-snap? These are things that you see with Talanoa Hufanga. So although he gave up I think he gave up a touchdown in my grading system against the Vikings, if I'm not mistaken. But other than that, he's been playing relatively well. So again, it's going to be an interesting game. We're just going to have to see how it plays out when it comes to the Minnesota Vikings and the Pittsburgh Steelers. But, talk about the safety position. Tyrann Mathieu is going to be an unrestricted free agent. He's number 1 safety in all of football. Strong safety, free safety, doesn't matter. So the Honey Badger, I know you like all my stuff and retweet my stuff too. So thank you, Mahalo, for the love. But yeah, it's just going to be an interesting offseason because when we talk about the 2022 NFL draft, because some of you guys have been DMing me on Twitter and Instagram asking for my draft analysis. You guys know I do that. And that's where really spot on predictions analysis when it comes to all 32 and my mock draft and so forth. But Kyle Hamilton does it all. Now, is he going to be like a Honey Badger type of a guy? No, he's bigger than Honey Badger, but what you can ask Kyle Hamilton can do. So I think that's going to entice a lot of defensive coordinators and how they run their scheme on the back end, because you can use them as a hybrid type of a safety, right? And I think that's today's NFL, right? Buda Baker, hybrid safety. Jamal Adams, not a hybrid safety, gets exposed in pass coverage. I mean, anytime you line him up against a guy like George Kittle, just watch the coach's film on that game, he gets beat. And it doesn't have to be George Kittle. It could be a tier 3 tight end or wide receiver. He's just too slow. He doesn't have the fluid hips. He takes too many false steps. He's just strictly an additional linebacker. That's all he is. He's a Steve Atwater type of a guy, right? He's a Tim McDonald type of a guy. You can't expect him to play a cover 3 and be the last line of defense. If that happens, I'm taking all 4 shots downfield. I would go for it on 4th down and take a shot downfield because I don't trust Jamal Adams can get there. I'll throw it numbers to the boundary, make sure he throws outside the numbers so he can't get there in time. He might get to the numbers, but he can't get outside the numbers. And if he's a single high safety, he won't be able to cover that range. And even if he does leverage his splits pre-snap and he sees trips formation on that side of the field, no, it's still not going to happen. So anyways, that's it for that. I'm about to be ready to wrap this up, guys, because it has to be a short one because I got to get my gym gains in before covering the Thursday night football game. But if you like what I had to say, please hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner of your screen as you stay up to date on all things Beast in real time. Also, if you have anything that you want to say, reach out to me on Twitter and social media. Send me the super chat and super stickers. You can do that right here with the money icon on the live stream if you wish to donate to the BWF. Also, we do have these cool, you guys are probably wondering what the BWF t-shirts are. I cut off the sleeves, but we have these for sale. You guys can buy these for the holiday season. This is in black. This is in dark heather gray, which I'm wearing. And their BWF swag, 100% ring spun cotton, which is premium quality cotton. I don't skimp on quality. I'm all about quality over quantity. So if you guys want that, just shoot me a message. Also on Twitter, my Venmo is up on Twitter. So there's also a money icon. So if you wish to donate to the BWF, be sure to do so on there. I really appreciate it. So again, mahalo for the love. I'm about ready to head out on this Throwback Thursday. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a good day. BEASTwriter out.